संतेन क्या हुआ? संतेन सोम विधिना, शांति से। ये आठ कथा है ना, वो दिख रही थी, 8 कथा वाला। पहला दान है, दूसरा खंती है, तीसरा मित्रता है, चौथा इद्दी है, 5वां शांति है, 6वां पन्या है, 7वां उपदेश क्या गाओ?
सिद्धि
ज्ञानांगदनी ज्ञान तब छुट्टा है। चंद्रमा नहीं जलाया आपने? बिल्कुल दिखती ही गर्मी लगती है, ये पीली पीली लाइट है। हाँ, ये शीतलता प्रदान है। इसका टेबल कवर हो रहा है, ये निकाल देना ना, तो बाद में निकालना, दे देना। आज कुछ नवी थी तो उसको अनुमति थी कई कुछ मैथ्यू रिचर्ड विद HSDL क्या नाम?
आप सोचो किसको कहते हैं HDL के नाम से इस ब्रीफ में। तो भी सब जानती है, दुनिया जानती है उसको। मोस्ट फेमस बुद्धिस्ट इन द वर्ल्ड।
दलाई लामा
His Holiness Dalai Lama।
Discussion Matthew Richard का talk by Matthew Richard on how to let altruism क्या का
दूसरों के प्रति मैत्री का
empathy इसका तो क्या चुनी थी मज वर्ड?
दूसरे के दुख को अपना मानना, जैसे दूसरे के दुख को अपना मानना।
Battery low, please charge now. Connected to OnePlus 3T.
लूज कनेक्शन हो जाती है, हमेशा लगा हुआ फिर भी इसकी बैटरी लो हो जाती है। क्या बना रखा है इसका? लगा के रखा हुआ है।
अच्छा।
फिर भी इसको लूज कनेक्शन इसका ऐसा है, लूज है क्या है, कुछ ना कुछ होता रहता है। कुछ भी नहीं करना होगा, सिर्फ हिलाओ, ये डुलाओ, इसको कुछ करो, ये करो, क्या कनेक्शन किया हुआ इन लोगों ने। एक तो उसका कनेक्टर ऐसा है कि देख एक पोजीशन में चल रहा है, एक पे नहीं चल रहा, करो क्या करोगे इसको? कंपेशन का मतलब मैंने कहा सहानुभूति, सहानुभूति।
Evening chanting. Yo so bhagava arham sama sambuddho swakhato yena bhagavata dhammo supatipanno yassa bhagavato sangho tamayam bhagavantam sadhammam sasangam ime sakari yatarham aropite abhipujayam sadhuno bhante bhagava suchira parinibhutopi pachima janata nukampamanasa ime sakari dugat panakara bhute patiganhatu amhakam digratam hitaya sukaya arham sama sambuddho bhagava buddham bhagavantam abhivadimi sakhato bhagavata dhammo dhammam namassami supatipanno bhagavato savak sangho sangham namami handmayam buddhasya bhagavato ubbhag namkara karomasi namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa handmayam buddhanusati क्या ऐसे सामग्री नहीं भेजना कुछ नहीं भेजना यहाँ होगा handmayam buddhanusatinayam karomasi गतो इति पिसो भगवा अरहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो विद्याचरण संपन्नो सुगतो लोकविदु अनुत्तरो पुरुष धम्म सारथि तादेव मनुष्यानं बुद्धो भगवाति। अन्मयं बुद्धादिगीतिं करोमसे बुद्धमारहन्तमरता द्विगुणाभियुतो शुद्धाभिज्ञानकरुणा विसमागततो ओदेशियो सुजनतं कमलं वसुरो वन्दामहं तमरणं शिरसा जिनेन्दं बुद्धो यो सर्वपाणिनं शरणं खेममुत्तमं प्रथमानुसतिष्ठानं वन्दामि तं शिरेणहं बुद्धस्स्मिदासीव बुद्धो मे स्वामी ईश्वरो बुद्धस्सहं नियादेमि शरीरं
जीवितं चिदं वन्दन्तोऽहं चरिष्यामि बुद्धस्यैव सुबोधितं नास्ति मे शरणं अन्यं बुद्धो मे शरणं वरम् एतेन सच्चवज्जेन वड्डेयं सत्तु शासने बुद्धं मे वन्दमानेन यं पुण्यं पशुतं हिदा सब्बेऽपि अन्तरायामि माहेषुं तस्य तेजसा कायेन वाचा वाचेत्सा ते कुकुमं पकटमयां पटिगनात् वचन्तं कालान्तरे सम्मरितुं भवन्ते।
आनन्दमयं धम्मानुसतिनयं करोमसे
स्वागतो भगवता धम्मो सन्दिट्ठिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको पनैको पच्चत्तं वेदितव्यो विज्ञोहीति।
आनन्दमयं धम्माभिगीतिं करोमसे
स्वाकाताति गुणयोगवशेन सेयो यो मग्गपाकपर्यतिविमोक्षभेदो धम्मो कुलोकपठन तदधारी वन्दाम्यहं तमरं वरधम्ममेतं धम्मो यो सर्वपाणिनं शरणं खेममुत्तमं द्वितीयानुसतिष्ठानं वन्दामि तं शिरेणहं धम्मस्सहं
दासीव
धम्मो मे सामिकेश्वरो धम्मस्सहं नियादेमि शरीरं जीवितं चिदं वन्दन्तोऽहं चरिष्यामि धम्मस्यैव सुधम्मतं नास्ति मे शरणं अन्यं धम्मो मे शरणं वरम् एतेन सच्चवज्जेन वड्डेयं सत्तु शासने धम्मं मे वन्दमानेन यं पुण्यं पशुतं हिदा सब्बेऽपि अन्तरायामि माहेशुं तस्य तेजसा कायेन वाचा वाचेत्सवा परिघ्रातो चैन्तं कालान्तरे संवरितं संगे
हन्तमयं सङ्घानुसतिनयं करोमसे सुपटिपन्नो
भगवतो सावक संगो उजुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो न्यायपटिपन्नो
भगवतो सावक संगो सामीचिपटिपन्नो
पन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरुषयुगान् अट्टपुरुषपुङ्गला एष भगवतो सावक संगो आहुनेयो आहुनेयो दक्षिणेयो अञ्जलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्यकेत लोकसाति
हन्तमयं सङ्गाभिगीतिं करोमसे सधम्मजो
सुपटिपत्तिगुणादियुतो यो अट्टविदो अरियपुङ्ग सङ्गसेठो शीलादिधम्मपवराशयकाय चित्तो वन्दाम्यहं तमर्या गणं सुशुद्धं सङ्गो यो सर्वपाणिनां
शरणं खेममुत्तमं ततीयानुसतिष्ठानं
वन्दामि तं शिरेणहं सङ्गसस्मिदासो वा सङ्गो मे सामिकिस्सरो सङ्गसहं नियादेमि शरीरं जीवितं चिदं वन्दन्तोऽहं चरिष्यामि सङ्गस्सोपटिपन्नतं नत्थि मे शरणं अन्यः सङ्गो मे परणं वरं एतेन सज्जवज्जेन वड्डेयं सत्तु शासने सङ्गं मे वन्दमानेन यं पुण्यं पशुतं इदा सभ्येऽपि अन्तरायामि माहेशुं तस्य तेजसा कायेन वाचा वाचेत्सवा सङ्गोपटिगनाथचैन्तं कालान्तरे संवरितं संगे
Page 127. करणीय मेत्त सूत्र पेज 127.
සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතු අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතු අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස කරණීය මත්ත කුසලේන යං තං සුතං කදං අபிසමිච්ඡ සක්කෝ ජුච සුජුච සුවචෝ තස්ස මුදු අනතිමානි සන්තුස්සකෝච සුභරෝච අපකිත්තෝච සල්ලෝකෝත්ති සන්තින්ද්‍රියෝච නිපතෝච අපගබ්බෝ කුලේසු අනනුසිද්දෝ නච කුද්දං සමාචරේ කිංචි යේන විඤ්ඤෝ පරේ උපවදෙයෝ සුඛිනෝ වාකේමිනෝ හොන්තු සබ්බේ සත්තා භවන්තු සුඛිතත්තා යේකේචිපාන භූතස්සි තසාවා ථාවරාවා අනවශේෂා දීගාවායේ මහන්තාවා මජ්ජිමාරස්ස හානුකතුලා දිට්ඨාවායේව අද්දිට්ඨා යේච දුරේ සංති අවිදුරේ භූතාවා සම්භවේසීවා සබ්බේ සත්තා භවන්තු සුඛිතත්තා නපරෝ පරං නිකුබ්බේච ඥාති මංගේච කත්ත සිනං කංචි බ්‍යාරෝසනා පටිග සංඥා නාඤ්ඤ මඤ්ඤස්ස දුක්ඛ මිච්ඡේය මාතායතා නියං පුත්තං ආයුසා ඒක පුත්ත මනුරක්ඛේ එවම්පි සබ්බ භූතේසු මාන සම්භාවයේ අපරිමාණං මිත්තංච සබ්බ ලෝකස්මින් මාන සම්භාවයේ අපරිමාණං උද්දං අදෝච තිරියංච අසම්බාධං අවේරං අසපත්තං තිට්ඨං ජරං නිසින්නෝවා සයානෝවා යාවතස්ස විගත මිද්දෝ ඒතං සතින් අධිට්ඨේය බ්‍රහ්මමේතං විහාරං ඉදමාහු දිට්ඨින්ච අනුපගම්ම සීලවා දස්සනේන සම්පන්නෝ කාමේසු විනේයගේධං නහි ජාතු ගබ්භසෙයං පුනේති ඒතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන සොත්තිතේ හෝතු සබ්බදා ඊතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන සබ්බ රෝගෝ විනස්සති ඊතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන හෝතු තේ ජය මංගලං.
Today we'll listen to two short Dhamma discussions of Matthew Ricard. First, Matthew Ricard talking to His Holiness the Dalai Lama on empathy, compassion and consciousness. And then second talk he is giving in Google headquarters, talk on altruism. Matthew Ricard, His Holiness Dalai Lama, I think we all know. Matthew Ricard is a monk in the Tibetan tradition who resides in Nepal. He ordained in 72. He is born of very famous parents. His mother is a distinguished painter, father was a distinguished philosopher. He himself was a very distinguished scientist, molecular genetics, and did his PhD under a Nobel laureate in Pasteur Institute. But then thereafter he went for a break to Nepal and didn't come back. He became a monk there, and he's a monk since 72. He is the French interpreter of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So he's written a number of books. He is the first person to subject himself to, one of the first to subject himself to testing, brain imaging, and on the basis of brain imaging he has been identified by the neuroscientists as the happiest person on earth. That is the extent of his meditation. So just I'm mentioning that in a lighter tone. So we'll first listen to the discussion with His Holiness and then the talk by Matthew Ricard.
Nowadays, I think I want to mention the sense of sort of sense of concern of others' well-being. There are two levels. One level, almost biological factor. So that is your friend or someone very positive towards you, then some kind of sense of concern usually come. That animal also have biological factor. Because for your survival, they, I mean, they need cigarette. Like for children's survival, need mother. Mother sort of, I think, biologically, you should take special care about children. That kind of compassion is very much mixed with attachment. So, attachment we consider something destructive, because too much attachment. With that, hate also come together. Today, very much about love, and including sexual love. And after a few days, a few months, few years, opposite, hate. So that's not come from training, biological factor. And also very much mixed with attachment. So that is not good. Now, genuine sort of compassion is irrespective of the other's attitude towards you. For example, oneself loves oneself. Not the reason I'm very kind to myself. No. I want happy life. I don't want suffering. So on that basis, you develop sense of concern of yourself. So the limitless centered being, everyone wants happy life, do not want suffering. On that level, develop sense of concern, regardless their attitude towards you. So that is genuine sort of compassion which we are talking. The first compassion, biologically developed, spontaneous. Second level of compassion through training. Animal cannot do. So training means use our intelligence. Thinking pros and cons, pros and cons. That kind of compassionate sort of attitude. What value? Tremendous benefit to yourself. And that immediately brings peaceful mind. That brings healthy body. And also, you see, I wrote, you see, that also, you see, bring more smile. Smile bring more friend. That not friend of money, not friend of power, and in some extent, not friend of knowledge. Professor. Some professors you have more friend because of that person is a great professor. So like that, you see, that kind of compassion not depend on their attitude. Therefore, your enemy also, you see, really deserve our compassion. They also want happiness to run suffering. And particularly, you see, enemy side, you may have additional reason they are committing some negative work, negative karma. So you have some special, more you understand the negativeness or harmfulness about anger, hatred, suspicion. Then your enemy, you say, actually, deliberately, because of that, practice these things. Or just let come these things. So there is sufficient reason to feel sense of concern. So that kind of compassion, not by biological factor, but through training, use our intelligence. So that is we used to call analytical meditation. Think. So that brings immense benefit because, on the other hand, self-centered attitude is the key sort of factor to develop fear, anger, hatred, all these negative sort of emotions are very much based on self-centered sort of attitude, me, like that. So therefore, say, analyze what is valuable, what is harmful, and then through that way, you see, you deliberately make closer these positive emotions. Then familiarize, as I think you know, the Tujungshiro, Samjungshiro, Kumjungshiro.
So it's like the wisdom and the knowledge comes from learning or hearing, then from reflecting in depth, and finally from integrating to practice and meditation or sort of experience, integrating in one's mind stream.
So first level, just knowledge, not much effect. And also may change. Someone else says something different, then you may think, oh, that may be true. The second level, you yourself seriously analyze these things. So you develop some kind of conviction. Then someone say, this is wrong. Then whether you respond or not, in your mind feel, oh, no, he's wrong. His or her, his or her, wrong. I analyze. So, number one reason, number two reason, A, B, C, D, like that. So that's the conviction. That conviction then brings third level of knowledge or awareness. That's familiarize. Then you see, real feeling develop. So analytical meditation is very, very essential. Like that. The previous compassion is biased. The second level compassion is unbiased. Also, I think there is differences. The genuine compassion must combine with awareness or shirotsa.
Kind of wisdom or awareness or discriminating discernment.
So, shirok taught the jebe tone, tabela dungen tone, achi ta khanra dungen de mena sabe ning zam se to. Ta dene dungen ti du khala dene chung, di de sam ta ne. Dungen ti deru yin ba tone. Ta dungen ti le tar tu ba yugi la dungen xiangwa ne chin de be de mix ye ning ji to. So
within the compassion, there is one aspect of compassion where you see someone suffering and feel sorry for that. And on the other hand, you also see someone suffering, but you also see the fact that that suffering can be overcome. And while it is something that can be overcome, I mean, the person is still suffering, and you feel and so you analyze that suffering comes from causes and conditions, and that can be overcome. And there is then the sense of wanting to free the person from that kind of suffering. So mere suffering, and then there's this sense of wanting
mere wish to overcome suffering, without knowing the real sorrow, also the possibility to overcome suffering. So that's more or less wishful thinking. Then another, you see, that cause of that suffering can overcome. Can be overcome. Then, you see, you develop some kind of serious sense of concern of their suffering. I think oneself already you know the causes of that physical illness. Then there is a real possibility to eliminate that cause. Then the more desire take medicine or exercise these things. The illness cannot cure. Then although you have some wish but not much enthusiasm. Similar, like that. So, wisdom side is very, very important. Very important. So, as far as Buddhism is concerned, I think emphasis more on wisdom side.
On the intellectual reasoning side.
Understanding.
Understanding, yeah.
예란데다 탐제네 덤베 시루탄도 송샤도와 예란데다 탐제네 덤베 닝지탄도 송도 초으로 이래 송도와.
So in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara it says all these other branches of teachings were given by the Buddha, taught by the Buddha in order to develop wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Now, Maturika, we know we will have some illustrations. Matthew is also a great photographer.
Oh, really?
And he's...
and a very strict vegetarian.
And he will, as a great spiritual man and artist, tackle with the question too, and compassion and empathy. Maturika. Thank you. So, Your Holiness, about the distinction between empathy and compassion that Tanya explained very beautifully in scientific terms, to relate to what Your Holiness is often saying about that, you often speak of the courage that comes with compassion.
Yes.
So, empathy is usually considered as the effect that the feeling of others have on you. So if it's joy, then you feel more joyful. But imagine you resonate with the suffering of others. So it creates suffering in you. Another person suffering, another person suffering. So because it is oriented, self-oriented, then suffering piles up. So it becomes, actually your courage sort of crumbles. So you fall into emotional, what they call emotional exhaustion, empathic distress, burnout, and just to, to know that 60% of all nurses, doctors in USA are or will suffer of burnout. So there is a big problem. Now, why compassionate courage? Because compassion, as Tanya said, is basically loving kindness oriented toward others and dealing with the suffering of others. And the more they suffer, because it is others-oriented, the more your courage and determination to do something increase. So it's not something that burdens you. Like the doctor on the battlefield is not going to cry the moment he sees one wounded person, then that will not work. So more suffering, more courage, that bodhisattva ideal. So that's why it's a big difference. And the work of Tanya have shown that it is different in the brain. So unless you train specifically for this compassion, then the nurses will never get this strength of mind to deal again and again with suffering. So that's why it seems so important. But in general also, as Tanya has shown, by practicing specifically loving kindness, Maitri, that's what she was training mostly, and compassion, it increased the prosocial behavior. And prosocial behavior and quality of human relationship is based on that, a mutual exchange, and not only human beings, animals also have this kind of idea. And so, but not always, sometimes animals a little bit better than humans, it happens. So they sometimes treat their kids a little bit better. Well, there are some exceptions. But human beings love to cooperate, and that comes from prosocial behavior. There's a great joy in cooperating. And animals do cooperate as well. So, this is not new. Throughout evolution, those things came, but of course they became a much bigger magnitude in human beings. Now, of course, people always speak of competition, the struggle for life. There's competition, in that case, the bird is the winner. But, but the recent studies in evolution have shown that cooperation has been much more creative to bring complex organization, like bees and ants. Ants, human beings are super cooperators by nature. A city would not function without constant cooperation, whether we know it or not. And people can do heroic acts also out of genuine disinterested altruism. You know, this guy is not going to think for half an hour, should I give my hand or not, without hesitation. But animal can do that too. You know, this mouse certainly it's not easy to hold his friends, so I don't know what happens after that. But basically, this thing is present in our gene at different levels. There are people during the Second World War. This is a couple of pastors in France who saved thousands of Jewish people with the whole village. They brought them to Switzerland over a long time at great risk. They put their life at the risk of others. So now, is it somehow, as you often said and you said again in Brussels, because we have these predispositions toward kindness and altruism, we love better people who are altruistic. Of course, we know we have possibility for hatred, for anger, for doing terrible things, but basically, as you mentioned in Brussels, even young children have this natural inclination that they prefer people who behave well. So this is a small piece taken from Paul Bloom's research in Harvard, in Yale, showing that. Well, can you send the movie here?
Ici, un chien blanc essaie d'ouvrir une boîte emplie de jouets.
So there's one puppet
Ethan,
that is trying
6
to
mois,
open the box.
est captivé.
And the baby is watching. So it doesn't succeed. So the other
Le chien
puppet comes
bleu
and helps.
apporte son aide, c'est le bon garçon.
Now,
En
trying to
revanche,
go again to
le chien
open the
jaune ne
box.
se comporte pas très bien.
Children watch. Now comes the bad guy. No, you can't open the box. After that, you show both the nice
Une
puppet
étudiante du laboratoire, qui ne
and
sait
the
pas lequel des
unkind
deux chiens
puppet
c'est bien ou
to
mal
the baby.
comporté, demande à Ethan de faire un choix.
Which one do you like?
95% of baby take the nice behaving puppet. And even 3 months baby, they can't catch, but you look at where they look, 95%. So there is some kind of predispositions towards appreciating people who behave well, not towards you, but even to each other. So we need that in the medical world to overcome this kind of burnout. And when we see suffering again and again and again and again, not only nurses, but social workers, people who work in the humanitarian world, if they only function with empathy, then they burn out. So you see, this is what happens to nurses. There's too much. So they need this compassion and loving kindness training, both through the meta-analysis, also to taking perspective have to go together, the wisdom and the compassion aspect. So in our life, obviously we have many challenges. Our friends can be our mind can be our best friend, like my teacher, Kangyur Rinpoche. Or our mind can be our worst enemy. We talk of depression. 10 to 15% of aged people are suffering from depression. So we have also a social problem. Poverty, even in the midst of richness and plenty. So we have instruments that has other species. So we think they're just there for making of our own use. We can do anything we want, even for pleasure, like bullfights. So now, why is altruism and compassion so important for society? And if we can develop it through different methods, as Tanya's study and many others have studied, Antoine is studying that too, it is a win-win situation. Altruism is the most satisfying state of mind. As you often says, very smart, selfish people will cultivate altruism because in the end, this is also the most rewarding state of mind. Me all day long, as your holiness says, makes you miserable and you make everyone miserable around. It's a lose-lose situation. Not only that, but the wisdom aspect. Compassion and altruism is attuned to reality, to interdependence, that we all are basic sentience and basic humanity. If we think I'm alone in this world and the others can do what they want to get happy, but it's not my job, it doesn't work because you imagine that you are the small autonomous entity. So the wisdom aspect is also missing. But altruism has both this very satisfying component and also the understanding of interdependence. So now, what will lead in the world to more caring economics? Economy at the service of society, not the opposite. In the midterm, more social justice, pursuit of happiness, long term, caring for future generations, which is very difficult because they are not here, and caring for 8 million other species and the environment. So that comes from this concept of care, altruism, compassion. So Francisco also started, we are going to have a symposium in his honor after his Holiness leave. He started this notion that we could work together, neuroscientists and meditators, to study the effect of this mental training on the brain. So again, disciples of teachers like the Gokyenze Rinpoche went to the lab, like Antoine showed us. So Rinpoche studied, many of those masters, like Mingyu Rinpoche, they also participated, and not only as guinea pig, like me, I know nothing more than a guinea pig, but they can also help the scientists to understand better, interpret the result of their findings. Now, Richie Davidson, your friend Richie Davidson, also trying that with 4 or 5 years old preschoolers. Can a kindness curriculum make a difference? And what he found is after 10 weeks, there's a sharp increase in pro-social behavior, just kindness, gratitude, working together, compared to other children who didn't do that curriculum. Very simple. The children enjoy that. And this is also another factor that will help reduce, in the last few days, so many journalists ask you, violence is increasing all over the place, what shall we do? Well, the good news is thanks to the rise somehow of human rights, of respect of the others, contrary to what we see every day in the media, over the last 5 centuries, violence has been declining steadily. If you see the number of murders, in Oxford in 1350, there was 100 murders per year for 100,000 people. Now there's 1. It has gone 100 times down. Similarly, the abuse of children has gone half in the United States over 20 years. So globally, even there are terrible things happening always somewhere in the world, globally, the tendency is towards what Your Holiness say, a century of peace, a century of dialogue, somehow is coming in the culture. Even the number of average casualty, death per conflict or per war, it has gone from 60,000 in 1950 after World War II to about 1,000 now. Of course, there are terrible things like in Iraq, in Sudan, in Syria, but if you take the whole world, not only what the TV show you, in general, there's a strong decrease. This is a book that has been researched, a scientific book about the decline of violence. So we need to enhance cooperation in the school, less competition. We spoke about depression and suicide. Many young people commit suicide because they fail in their study, which is stupid. They can do many other things in life. So enhance cooperative rather than competition, sustainable harmony with our environment, more caring economics. We really use economy for the well-being of people. We need local commitment. Everyone can make a difference, and sense of universal responsibility, which Your Holiness is always advocating. And then we need to extend our altruism to 8 other million species. They are co-citizens in this world. They're not just here to please us, entertain us, or whatever. And we need the compassionate courage. We need to dare to say that altruism is not just a nice, sweet, utopian idea. It's the most pragmatic way to deal with the problem of this modern world. So as Martin Luther King said, every man and woman, of course, must decide whether he or she will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. So there are a few books that for those who are interested. And from Tubden Jimba, your translator. And then thank you so much, Your Holiness, for your attention.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. 認識咪嚟？認識咗。
Do you want to answer to Matthew?
100% agree.
What a relief. So, we humans have extraordinary potential for goodness, but also an immense power to do harm. Any tool can be used to build or to destroy. That all depends on our motivation. Therefore, it is all the more important to foster an altruistic motivation rather than a selfish one. So now, we indeed are facing many challenges in our times. Those could be personal challenges. Our own mind can be our best friend or our worst enemy. There's also societal challenges, poverty in the midst of plenty, inequalities, conflict, injustice. And then there is a new challenges which we don't expect. 10,000 years ago, there was about 5 million human beings on Earth. Whatever they could do, the Earth's resilience will soon heal human activities. After the industrial and technological revolution, that's not the same anymore. We are now the major agent of impact on our Earth. We enter the Anthropocene, the era of human beings. So in a way, if we were to say we need to continue this endless growth, endless use of material resources, it's like saying, if this man was saying, and I heard a former head of state, I won't mention who, saying 5 years ago, we were at the edge of the precipice. Today, we made a big step forward. So this edge is the same which have been defined by scientists as the planetary boundaries. And with those boundaries taking care of a number of factors, we can still prosper. Humanity can still prosper for 150,000 years if we keep the same stability of climate as in the Holocene for the last 10,000 years. But this depends on choosing a voluntary simplicity, growing qualitatively, not quantitatively. So in 1900, as you can see, we were well within the limits of safety. Now, in 1950 came the great acceleration. Now hold your breath, not too long, to imagine what comes next. Now, we have vastly overrun some of the planetary boundaries. Just to take biodiversity, at the current rate, in 2050, 30% of all species on Earth will have disappeared. Even we keep their DNA in some fridge, that's not going to be reversible. So, here I am sitting in front of a 7,000 meters high, 21,000 feet glacier in Bhutan. The third pole, 2,000 glaciers are melting fast, faster than the Arctic. So what can we do in that situation? Well, however complex, politically, economically, scientifically, the question of the environment is, it simply boils down to a question of altruism versus selfishness. I'm a Marxist of the Groucho tendency. Groucho Marx said, why should I care for future generation? What did they do for me? Unfortunately, I heard the billionaire Stephen Forbes on Fox News saying exactly the same thing, but seriously. He was told about the rise of the ocean, and he said, I find absurd to change my behavior today for something that will happen in 100 years. So if you don't care for future generation, just go for it. So one of the main challenges of our times is to reconcile 3 time scale. The short term of the economy, the ups and downs of the stock market, the end of the year accounts. The mid-term of the quality of life. What is the quality every moment of our life and over 10 years and 20 years? And the long term of the environment. When environmentalists speak with economists, it's like a schizophrenic dialogue, completely incoherent. They don't speak the same language. Now, for the last 10 years, I went around the world meeting economists, scientists, neuroscientists, environmentalists, philosophers, thinkers in the Himalayas, all over the place. This seems to me there's only one concept that can reconcile those three time scales. It is simply having more consideration for others. If you have more consideration for others, you will have a caring economics where finance is at the service of society and not society at the service of finances. You will not play at the casino with the resources that people have entrusted you with. If you are more consideration for others, you will make sure that you remedy to inequality, that you bring some kind of well-being within society, in education, at the workplace. Otherwise, a nation that is the most powerful and the richest, everyone is miserable, what's the point? And if you are more consideration for others, you are not going to ransack that planet that we have. And at current rate, we don't have 3 planets to continue that way. So the question is, okay, altruism is the answer. It's not just a noble ideal, but can it be a real pragmatic solution? And first of all, does it exist? True altruism, or are we so selfish? So some philosophers thought that we were irremediably selfish, but are we really all just like rascals? That's good news, isn't it? Many philosophers like Hobbes have said so. Well, not everyone looks like a rascal. Or is man a wolf for man? But this guy doesn't seem too bad. He's one of my friends in Tibet. He's very kind. So now, we love cooperation. There's no greater joy than work together, isn't it? And then not only humans. Then, of course, there's the struggle for life, the survival of the fittest, social Darwinism. But in evolution, cooperation, though competition exists, of course, cooperation has to be much more creative to go to increased level of complexity. We are super cooperators and we should even go further. So now, on top of that, the quality of human relationship, the OCDE did a survey among 10 factors, including income, everything. The first one that people said, that's the main thing for my happiness, is quality of social relationship. Not only in humans. And look at those great grandmothers. So now, this idea that if you go deep within, we are irremediably selfish. This is armchair science. There is not a single sociological study, psychological study that ever shown that. Rather the opposite. My friend Daniel Batson spent a whole life putting people in the lab in very complex situations. And of course, we have sometimes selfish and some people more than others. But he found that systematically, no matter what, there's a significant number of people who do behave altruistically no matter what. If you see someone deeply wounded, great suffering, you might just help out of empathic distress. You can't stand it, so it's better to help than keep on looking at that person. So he tested all that, and in the end he said, clearly people can be altruistic. So that's good news. And even says further, we should look at the banality of goodness. Look at here. When we come out, we're not going to say, that's so nice. There was no fist fight while those monks were speaking about altruism. No, we expect that, isn't it? If there was a fist fight, we will speak of that for months. So the banality of goodness is something that doesn't attract your attention, but it exists. Now, look at this. Okay. So some psychologists said, when I tell them I run 140 humanitarian projects in the Himalayas, that gives me so much joy. They say, oh, I see, you work for the warm glow. This is not altruistic, you just feel good. You think this guy, when he jumped in front of the train, he thought, I'm going to feel so good when this is over. But that's not the end of it. They say, well, but when you interviewed him, he said, I had no choice. I had to jump, of course. He had no choice. Automatic behavior is neither selfish nor altruistic. No choice. Well, of course, this guy is not going to think for half an hour, should I give my hand, not give my hand? He does it. There is a choice, but it's obvious, it's immediate. And then also there, he had a choice. So now there are people who had choice, like Pastor André Trogmi and his wife, and the whole village of Chambon-Solignon in France, for the whole Second World War. They saved 3,500 Jews, give them shelter, brought them to Switzerland against all odds at the risk of their life and that of their family. So altruism does exist. So what is altruism? Is the wish, may others be happy and find the cause of happiness. Now, empathy is the affective resonance or cognitive resonance that tell you this person is joyful, this person suffers. But empathy enough is not sufficient. If you keep on being confronted with suffering, you might have empathic distress, burnout. So you need the greater sphere of loving kindness. With Tanya Singer at the Max Planck Institute of Leipzig, we showed that the brain network for empathy and loving kindness are different. Now that's all well done, so we got that from evolution through maternal care, parental love, but we need to extend that, and can be extended even to other species. Now, if we want a more altruistic society, we need two things, individual change and societal change. So is individual change possible? 2,000 years of contemplative studies said yes, it is. Now, 15 years of collaboration with neuroscience and epigeneticists said yes, our brain changed when you train in altruism. So I spent 120 hours in MRI machine. This is the first time I went after 2.5 hours. And then the result have been published in many scientific papers. It shows without ambiguity that there are structural change and functional change in the brain when you train in altruistic love. Just to give you an idea, this is the meditators at rest on the left, meditation in compassion meditation, you see all the activity, and then the control group at rest, nothing happened. In meditation, nothing happened. They have not been trained. So, do you need 50,000 hours of meditation? No, you don't. 4 weeks, 20 minutes a day of caring mindfulness meditation already brings a structural change in the brain compared to a control group. That's only 20 minutes a day for 4 weeks. Even with preschoolers, Richard Davidson did that in Madison, 8 weeks program, gratitude, loving kindness, cooperation, mindful breathing. You would say, oh, that's just preschoolers. Look, after 8 weeks. The prosocial behavior, that's the blue line. And then come the ultimate scientific test, the stickers test. Before you determine for each child who is their best friend in the class, their least favorite child, an unknown child, and a sick child, and they have to give stickers away. So before the intervention, they give most of it to their best friend. 4, 5 years old, 20 minutes, 3 times a week. After the intervention, no more discrimination. The same amount of stickers to their best friend and the least favorite child. No, that's something we should do in all the schools in the world. Now, where do we go from there? Well, when the Dalai Lama heard that, he told Rishi Davidson, you go 10 schools, 100 schools, the UN, the whole world. So now where do we go from there? Individual change is possible. Now, do we have to wait for an altruistic gene to be in the human race? That will take 50,000 years, too much for the environment. Fortunately, there is the evolution of culture. Cultures, as specialists have shown, change faster than genes. That's the good news. Look, attitude towards war has dramatically changed over the years. So now, individual change and cultural change mutually fashion each other, and yes, we can achieve a more altruistic society. So where do we go from there? Myself, I'll go back to the East. Now we treat 100,000 patients a year in our projects. We have 25,000 kids in school, 4% overhead. Some people say, well, your staff works in practice, but does it work in theory? So they call us a positive deviance. So our
आवाज आ रही है अच्छा देखते हैं
Just चला रहे हैं ना, इसको किसी का कॉपीराइट, इनका कॉपीराइट होगा, फिर इसको क्या कर सकते
ये नहीं चला सकते।
हैं। हाँ, एक तो प्रॉब्लम है।
अब